Hello and welcome to Well Played. I'm your host Bluetongue, from around Sydney, Australia. I'm also joined by our hosts from the hills. We have Harrow. How are you, Harrow?
I'm all right. I've had a crazy day at work, super stressed and ready for a good night's sleep and not murdering anyone tomorrow. But aside from that, I've been playing Battlefleet Gothic and oh my, the grinding.
Battlefleet Gothic.
Armada, yeah, the new game on Steam.
Okay.
Based off the 40k property. Where you have big capital class ships blowing the crap out of each other in space. And yes, did I mention the grinding?
Do you get to choose your race? What's the
campaign is only Imperial, but then you can play your race, but that means more grinding. Yeah. So if I've unlocked like the second largest class of vessel in the Imperial campaign, but when I want to play Chaos, I got to start from the bottom again.
So is it a real-time strategy or?
Yes, real-time strategy.
With like bases and everything?
No bases. It's there's no building. You basically get a random match, and then it says this is your objective, this is how many points, choose your fleet accordingly. And then you have a certain number of ships, and then if they get destroyed, you can't use them for a couple of rounds unless you pay extra. And yeah.
Okay.
The grinding.
Sure. Okay. Sounds interesting.
It's interesting, but if we were to play it seriously, we would have to do a lot of prep beforehand.
Okay, as in the game itself is very in-depth?
Yeah, it's not... we couldn't just spend one evening playing this, so we could do a podcast on it. We'd all have to grind to get decent-sized fleets, and then we'd have to have multiple games with the multiple battle types, and yeah, it's pretty full-on. So if you like that thing, it's well worth the $40. But yeah,
so that's the 5-minute rundown of Battlefleet Gothic Armada. Cool.
So in summary, grinding.
Yep, copy. From Gladesville, we have Bauxite. How are you doing, Baux?
I'm doing pretty well. Sort of recovered from my holiday to Melbourne. I got to see a play on the weekend, which was very interesting, actually. It was a surrealist comedy, I guess, called A Man Walks Into a Bar. And yeah, one of my wife's colleagues was starring in it, and it was, really interesting. Really, I didn't follow it. It was very fast.
Okay.
But very enjoyable nonetheless. So yeah.
Cool.
And unfortunately, that was instead of me going to Free Comic Book Day, which was a bit disappointing. But yeah.
I understand. From Canberra, we have Crystal. How are you doing, Crystal?
Yeah, not too bad. 2 weeks ago, I went to my first fireside gathering, which is the kind of social get-together element of Hearthstone, in a Swiss tournament, friendly, casual type style.
Yep.
I think it's meant to be casual, but there's a lot of competitive players that were there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure only like some relatively hardcore people would be along to those things. Like almost everyone is legend, I assume.
Yeah, like there was one guy who didn't lose a single round in 7 rounds.
Yep.
Wow.
So like there was a large difference, because I haven't played Hearthstone since pretty much it came out, really. I had stopped playing before they introduced the story mode.
Yep.
So basically that's how old my collection was.
Yeah.
And I got whipped pretty bad.
Trounced repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, it's definitely an unforgiving game. What happens when you play online is that it tries to match you up with people with the same size collection. So if you don't have a big collection, then that's great because you just get matched up with people who have similar amounts of experience. Unfortunately, there's also those exceptions where, say, for instance, I created an account on the EU and I don't have a heaps big collection for my EU account, and it matches me up against people who haven't been playing for that long, and it's fairly one-sided games. but fun for me.
So is that actual number of cards? So, like, can I cheese the system by disenchanting most of my cards?
That's an interesting question. I am not entirely sure. It's that's only the vague information that I have heard, like through various interviews and other bits and pieces. So I couldn't tell you the exact mechanics of it. But
Well, I think I'm going to do a bit of research, because if I can figure out a way to cheese this, I absolutely will.
it only works up until a certain point, and in terms of your easy matchups, because your people with small collections will become a really small minority when you start getting to the higher ranks.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, I imagine at that point it just starts just matching up against whoever's about your rank kind of thing. So,
Yep, fair enough.
Hmm.
I've actually been playing a fair bit of Hearthstone this week. I've got up to rank 12 today with a mid-range hunter death rattle deck. I'll have to probably ask your advice after the show about how to play that a bit better.
I've got that's actually what I'm playing on my EU account. Have you got your Sage?
Which one's that one?
The one that re-summons all your death rattles.
Oh, N'Zoth. Yes,
Oh,
I have. Yes,
like, sorry.
Yep, I do.
Yes, he's
interesting. He doesn't seem to be. If I'm already going to win, he seems to seal the deal, but he doesn't seem to be a come in from behind type card.
Mm.
I think if more of my death rattles had taunts, he might save my skin a bit more often. Anyway.
Yeah, there's not that many of them these days, so that could be a little bit difficult. But
man, I miss Sledge Belcher.
I do not. He's so painful. Anyway, enough about Hearthstone for the moment. Cam from the Blue Mountains, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. I haven't touched Hearthstone for 2 years or something like that, so there may be a little bit of catching up I'll have to do. Yeah, look, it's just that time of semester where I'm kind of swamped with the final 3 weeks of marking and all that kind of stuff, so it's not nearly as fun. Free Comic Book Day might have been the highlight of my week, so kind of keen to get underway with that and, you know, looking forward to having a chance to find what everyone else's finds were. I did manage to read Stephen King's book 11/22/63, which is a TV show now, and I think we might have to cover that for an upcoming episode because that's really, really good.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's got, what's his name? That guy. He's in everything.
Bean?
No. Don't be silly.
Oh.
It's also produced by J.J. Abrams. I haven't seen much of the TV show, but I have been struggling my way through finishing off the book. And yeah, I'm a big Stephen King fan, and I think we're probably going to have to cover the book and the TV show at some point, I think, to do it justice.
Okay. Maybe we can do a combined episode or something.
Yep.
Yeah, how about some of us read the book and the rest of us will just watch the episode?
That's definitely the quick way to get through it.
Yeah.
But how are you doing, Bluetongue?
I'm doing really well. I've been sinking some more time into the Division today, which was actually lots of fun. I've been making lots of friends and telling them all about the podcast.
You said you had an evangelistic kind of encounter last time.
Experience, yeah. I had a guy run up to me the other day in the Dark Zone and asked to tell me. They asked if I had time for him to tell me about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That was interesting. I was busy murdering people at the time, though, so tragically.
When the JWs come around, I have the exact same experience.
So I've been playing that. It's been interesting in that a lot of people have been talking about it as a dying game, but there's only certain aspects of it that are dying. The parts that I play that are generally co-op are actually still entirely playable and actually really fun. So I'm having a good time playing that still. I've been planning my trip to Europe at the moment, which is exciting. Teeing up different sort of locations and places to go and stuff like that. And interestingly, I had a quick chat with Ecop last night, who hopefully I might be able to pull out an interview for while I'm over there. For those of you who don't know who he is, he's a professional Hearthstone player. Previously played in the WoW CCG that was around for a fairly long time. And yeah, he's actually one of my most frequently watched Twitch streamers. So if you have the time, check him out on Twitch. Just type EKOP, and I'm sure you will find him. He's very entertaining. So yeah, I've been doing that, and obviously, like other people who are rediscovering their enjoyment of Hearthstone, I've been sinking some time into that too, playing a lot of Miracle Rogue, which is a really fun deck to play.
It's also bloody hard.
But again, with the whole Twitch streaming thing, that really provides a massive boon to your understanding of how those things work and what the best way to play them is. So, yeah.
I guess from my history of playing a lot of direct face damage decks, which sort of bypass a lot of strategy.
Yeah. Interestingly, it's a fairly non-interactive deck. It doesn't like you playing with your minions, sort of, like often you'll be concealing them to prevent your opponent from doing anything to them after you play them. So it's really interesting in that way. You do some just early trades, and then it's just all about pumping through your deck really, really quickly. Just so much fun. Drawing cards is fun. Who knew?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So this week we will be talking about Free Comic Book Day. Now, can one of you people who is more intensely interested in comic books than me tell me about the history of Free Comic Book Day?
So basically, it's the 15th year of Free Comic Book Day, and essentially a day that's intended, obviously, to promote comic books, but more than that, to kind of promote literacy, and a day where, as the title so sort of sneakily suggests, where you can get free comic books. So basically, all the major kind of American publishers will come up with a Free Comic Book Day edition, sometimes reprinting stories, sometimes a bit of a preview of their upcoming stories to give away. Some of the more independent labels have been getting in on it the past few years, and definitely a good place for anyone who's new to comic books, or maybe you've seen one of Marvel's films and want to catch up on a particular franchise. Great jumping on point for new fans. And just a really fun kind of community atmosphere. A lot of people do cosplay. A lot of different comic book stores have competitions or ways of getting involved. That's kind of in a nutshell. But what do you guys sort of enjoy about it, or what has been your experience of it, those of you that have been sort of encountering it more than one time?
So just to quickly elaborate on that, the actual location for Free Comic Book Day is no doubt your local comic book store. For Sydney-siders, that's generally speaking Kinokuniya, which is just across from the QVB, and King's Comics on Pitt Street. Yes, but we're going to go into a bit more detail as to what kind of experience you can expect from those locations now. Crystal, I believe you spent a significant amount of time at Free Comic Book Day.
I did. So I decided to venture away from Canberra and go to Sydney for Free Comic Book Day. Canberra actually did like some market stalls and some entertainment outside of Impact Comics here in Civic in Canberra, but I went to Sydney. I've been to Comic Book Day the last couple of years. Anyway, I jumped in line at about 10:20 at Kinokuniya. I got out of the store just after 2 o'clock or just after 1:30. So I spent a decent part of my day in a line.
Yes. So you spent a good 2 hours, would you say?
3.
3?
So I think we spent 2 hours in the line outside of the building, which, wrapped around the block.
Yeah.
But then once you actually got into Kinokuniya, the store, basically the lineup inside the store snaked just about the entire store.
Wow.
So you kind of got in and were like, yes, and you'd get through one section of the thing and go, oh yes, we're almost there, and then you realize no, it snakes up around the back and through the other side and comes right back around again.
Wow.
Yep. I
Cool.
think in previous years we'd kind of lucked out and gone in the afternoon and just kind of taken what we'd got, so we didn't really have to line up much.
Yep.
But this year was obviously different.
Now, what did you get? That's probably the most interesting point.
So at Kinokuniya, we got Civil War 2 and One Punch Man, which is actually a Japanese style in which you read it from right to left rather than left to right, which I really like. I think in previous years, I haven't seen that style of comic being given out or produced, or maybe that's just one of the ones I haven't got. What else did I get from Kinokuniya? I got Awake, which I haven't yet read.
Yep.
And DC Superhero Girls. So this has a great, cute cover of little kind of almost chibi-esque DC superhero girls. So you've got Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Batgirl, Harley Quinn, that sort of thing. And I thought, great, this is a really good one that I can give my little cousin, who's not really into comic books, but the girls on the cover, that'll sell her. And before I give it to her, I think I'll give it a read, just to see what it says. And I was pretty disappointed.
Okay.
I was really disappointed.
Was
that build up to?
Was it the quality of the story, or was it?
Yeah, definitely the quality of the story. Like, I wasn't expecting much, but basically she's at school, she's not doing well, she comes home, she's a bit sad, and someone tells her, "No, you're fine," and suddenly she is. There's a bunch of setup for her being upset and not the thing not happening. And then someone says, "Oh no, you're fine, you can do it," and suddenly she magically can. They had invested quite a number of panels in setup to make you believe that no, she couldn't do it, and then just the one comment and she can. And I didn't find that believable. And I feel like with all of those characters, you could have done so much better, DC. Not
so
impressed.
It sounds like the real superpower is believing in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Bauxite has a budding career as a writer ahead of him.
Yeah, no, it's great, hey?
Then, actually, after we had some lunch, and then we went to King's Comics, which is another Sydney retailer, and we only had to line up for like half an hour. I was pretty stoked, and I'm really glad we went because I also picked up Legend of Korra, and I was so happy. It's like the one I wanted out of the listed comics. And of course, that was gone at Kinokuniya by the time we got there. But I got it. It is a super cute story of when Korra was a child and she met her pet polar bear, Naga, and how she develops that initial bond with Naga. So anyone who's watched Legend of Korra as the animated series will be very familiar that Korra doesn't really go too many places without Naga.
It's a polar bear wolf. You got to remember the weird cross species of airbender.
Yeah, true. But he's so cute.
Fantastic. Cam, how was your experience over the weekend of Free Comic Book Day?
So I heard pretty early on what the lines were like in the city, so I sort of opted to come down later. My wife was at the Teachers Federation conference, so she told me, the line at King's Comics is murderous. So I got there later in the afternoon, and the line was fine. The lines were great in places that I've been, but I tried to go to 3 stores. That's usually what I do. And yeah, I went to 3 comic book stores across Sydney. First 2 were King's and Kinokuniya. Basically, they were great. I was in and out pretty quickly. Didn't take in a whole lot of the community aspect Free Comic Book Day, which is a bit of a disappointment. But I managed to nab, I think, 9 titles or something like that. I did pretty well for myself this year.
Awesome. Harrow, how did you go?
I had a lot of fun. I started at 9 o'clock at Phantom Zone in Parramatta. I met up with a couple of lady friends who were in cosplay, so I got to walk around with pretty girls all day. Can't complain about that. So, started at Phantom Zone. They were very nice. You were allowed to take 10 comics at Phantom Zone, and then you go to Comic King, and then it's 2. But yeah, I didn't do too bad on the lines actually. I started at power at 9 o'clock, so I queued for all of 3 minutes to get in, and then I queued for an hour 40, I think it was. Sorry, about 3 minutes to get into Phantom Zone, an hour 40 to get into Kings, had lunch, and then there was no queue to get into Kino. So I didn't do too badly lining up.
Yep.
And I've got a nice little collection of stuff I've picked up, and I've read a few of them so far. I have read that Legend of Korra story. You're right, very cute. I've also read what's it called? Pokemon Pocket Comics Legendary Pokemon.
Yep, I grabbed that one as well. How was it?
Yeah, we are not the target audience for this.
No.
Yeah, I think you can give that one a skip there, Cam. I also got Marvel is proud to present Star Wars free previews. So it's a couple of pages from all of the new Marvel Star Wars titles. So just little tastes of everything. Not really much didn't get me hooked on anything. The portions were too small. I think if they maybe did a fewer stories and gave you a bit more content, it would have been more engaging. And the one I'm currently reading is 2000 AD with Judge Dredd. If you pick that one up, my advice is read it last and then have a good laugh at yourself.
Yes.
High
So,
praise indeed.
my experience was that I went in there after lunch. I had a prearranged lunch meeting with some friends, and then I honestly had never been to one before, so I had no idea what to expect. I'd been hearing, dire stories about the queues and that sort of thing, and it was still moderately crowded by the time I got in there, which was about 5 p.m. or so, and I found it to be honestly a little underwhelming. So there wasn't any queue into Kinokuniya when I went there, which was the only place that was still open by the time I got there into the city. Now, what I did get was the Judge Dredd one that you were just talking about, Harrow, and the Serenity one as well, also featuring Hellboy and aliens.
Yep.
Okay. Is this what you would normally expect from a free comic book day?
I haven't read the Serenity. I haven't got the Serenity one. Sorry, I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't yet sort of had a chance to read that either. But do you mean the experience itself, or do you mean the individual issue?
Well, what you get. So it's advertised as free comic book day, but what I'm kind of getting is that it's free tasters of existing comics that we already produce.
You mean that's already available?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no, aside from the tasters, there's no free comics per se.
So certainly at the Phantom Zone, they've previously given away some of their excess stock, and I remember in 2011, Marvel had a story that was exclusive for their free comic book day Spider-Man edition. But yeah, generally it's kind of a preview of upcoming stories or something you might have missed kind of thing.
Okay, that clears things up for me a little.
Phantom Zone did give me issue 1 of Superman Batman. So that's, which is the Public Enemy storyline. But that's a full issue for free you could have gotten, they were giving away.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of your mileage may vary, because also in Sydney is Comic Kingdom, which has a very much focus on older comics. And potentially their upstairs is closed. I know it was definitely closed on Saturday, but whether that's a permanent thing or not, I'm not sure. But basically, you walk in, you get 5 free comics. So between myself and my partner, we got 10 free comics.
That's pretty good.
So it's basically a box of random, what some people might call junk, but there's some interesting things that I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise, which is kind of interesting.
Cool. Yeah. So after we got into the I think the queue was about 5 people by the time we got there in the evening, but the shelves were completely empty in the actual, in like the comic book section of Kinokuniya. So I just kind of assumed that we'd sort of missed out, and the vast hordes of people that had been there previously had gleaned everything that was to be had.
Well,
that's really fair.
Yeah, both Kinokuniya and Kings were doing 20% off comic books, so it was a really good day to stock up on comic books and manga.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's other discounts that go along with the actual free comic book tasters, but yeah, and you can get your hands on some relatively. Would you say relatively obscure comics as well?
Yeah, in terms of free or in terms of on sale?
In terms of free.
Oh, obscure.
Oh,
I've got
not necessarily like collector's editions or anything, but certainly free comic book day editions.
Yeah. Okay.
And certainly things you may not have considered before. Like there's some comics there that when you've got a restricted choice and they're saying pick two for free, you just go, oh, I'll have that one and that one.
Yeah.
That you may not have looked at.
Also,
otherwise.
You need to be drunk when you're choosing.
Was that what you would sort of hope to have one day? Is that like the aspiration for Free Comic Book Day?
But free beer and free comics.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
So line those two up. I was commenting to my wife, actually, that it's a shame that Ben and Jerry's have a free cone day every year. So that those two events don't line up at all.
No, they don't. Unfortunate.
I didn't know about this free cone day. Tell me more.
It's not that type of cone, dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
So disappointed.
Free ice cream cone day. But certainly, yeah, I had some fun.
I knew they were hippies, but...
Yeah. I had some fun telling people that I was on my way to Penrith for a free cone. But definitely, I think that, yeah, if you didn't know what to expect, you may find yourself disappointed in what you had to grab there. But definitely, I grabbed things that I wouldn't have seen as much before, like the comic book legal defense fund, I think it's called. They had an issue that they had for their free comic book day that looks to be excellent. So if you can find the right stuff, it's a good day.
Cool. Yeah, like I get the feeling that if there's a series that you're really distinctly interested in and you go along there, you can get stuff at a good discount and you can get some other freebies and some exposure and just get to hang out with other people who share your interests, which is cool. But yeah, for someone to introduce them into the world of comics, I don't know that this is a super positive experience for that.
I think if you're like really, really young, it would be, because they had a lot of giving away a lot of kids stuff. And I've seen that at Oz Comic Con and stuff where they have a lot of like kids comics they give away for free. So if you're a parent, maybe taking a little one.
Yep.
I guess in some ways what Bluetongue might be getting at is that it might be free comic book day, but to a certain extent, it's also shit comic book day.
That's a bit harsh.
I think it
so?
really is. Yeah, I think it really is. It's a good line, but yeah, definitely.
I mean, in terms of waiting for hours and hours and hours to get some of the comic books, which aren't definitely for free, but also perhaps not the best the community has to offer.
Yeah.
No, it's not the best.
Like, the way I kind of envision it, in terms of someone saying, hey, there's free comic book day on, I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I wonder what that entails. Is if I was a publisher, I'd be going, okay, here's issue 1. It's amazing. The rest of our series is actually fairly mediocre, but this is our sort of our flagship and something we can sell people on, and we can give these away for free and then have them buy the rest of the comics in this series based on this introduction for it. That's kind of what I was thinking it would be like, and it was not.
Yeah, particularly. I'm going to say Marvel did well with what the 2 free comics they were offering. They're cashing in on their Civil War hype. So the 2 free ones you could get was a Civil War 2 and this Captain America. And I believe the Civil War 2 is one of the very early stories. I didn't get it because I didn't like the first one that much. But yep, I think that's a good example of a taster. That's issue 1, probably all of it to get you in to keep reading the rest of it. I'll read the Captain America one a bit later, but I think this is also the start of a story arc, which they can get you hooked into to then buy additional stuff. Whereas DC released a Suicide Squad that I'm guessing is 4 years old, if they recognize that cover. And yeah, they've got their rebirth thing coming up, which would have been the perfect opportunity to spruik it, and they sort of didn't, and they released that DC superhero girls thing, trying to corner the market on young female children. I'm not quite sure why, if you only get 2, that's one you lead with.
Yeah, look, I would be interested to check out the Civil War and the Captain America ones, but unsurprisingly, they were well and truly gone by the time I got there in the afternoon, so...
Yes, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. A little bit disappointing. So...
Actually,
haven't...
I don't think Civil War was a bad pick, because just looking at it now, about halfway through the first section, you actually have one page where a battle's taking place, and all of the characters in the scene actually have their names. So
Okay.
I think that's actually a good choice for an introduction piece.
Yep, good.
And-
Smart move on their part.
Is it a standalone story of sorts, or is it just like a little taster as well?
I think it's a little taster. I haven't read the whole thing.
I think it's the start of a big crossover arc.
Yeah.
So last year they had one of these for all new, all different Avengers, which was the first, I don't know, maybe the first quarter of that first issue, which was really good because that was ahead of Marvel's relaunch. So I think it's a smart move, you know, like giving us a little bit of a taste and something to get underway with later. You know, the whole thing Homer Simpson says about free samples, you get us addicted, then jack up the price. I think you know, if you go to the right place on Free Comic Book Day, it could help. Anyone that missed out this year, usually events like Supernova will have their excess stock, and I expect, you know, Kings would probably be giving away that one, probably giving away Civil War 2.
Yeah, fantastic.
So did you guys actually buy anything while you were at the comic book shops?
I didn't buy a comic book from a comic book store, but I did buy a board game from a board game store.
Awesome. What board game?
Conveniently, Games Paradise is located across the road from King's Comics, so that was really convenient. I bought Planes. Games Paradise were having a massive % off sale, so I got it at a reasonable price.
Cool.
That's good timing on their part. That was smart.
Is that
Yes.
Is that like the follow-up to Trains?
Yep, basically.
It's kind of in their automobiles series, but it's a very different game to Trains.
Okay. Cool.
So, Trains is based on the kind of Dominion deck building mechanic, and then there's a board element.
Yep.
Whereas Planes is kind of based on a more Mancala and getting off achievements or goals with
Cool.
the Mancala board.
What is Mancala?
It's basically the 5 tribes mechanic.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of cubes or items on a certain space, and then you take those items and distribute them one by one in the preceding.
Oh yeah. So that's the old
spaces.
Stone Age game. That's like one of the very original board games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Originating from India, I believe.
Yeah, it's extremely old.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
It's called Stone Age, I mean. First hint there.
It was Bronze Age or perhaps even Iron Age. But no, not Stone Age.
Don't be outrageous.
So no one got anything?
I managed to just grab my usual kind of run when I was down there. So I grabbed the latest issue of Saga and the latest issue of Outcast by the same guy that writes The Walking Dead.
Which issue of Saga did you get?
So they're up to issue 36 at the moment.
Oh, okay, sure. Yep.
As in trade, paperback number?
No,
30?
as in actual individual issue.
Oh, thought they were further than that. Okay.
And they haven't actually released the next compilation yet?
I don't think they will for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had my eye on that. You know, it's still a great series, but until very recently, it wasn't going where I wanted the storyline to go. I don't know if that's the same as it being bad necessarily, but I certainly read it with interest.
For anyone who's interested in hearing a more detailed discussion about Saga, we've got one of our older episodes I think it was almost episode 1, was our discussion of Saga, which may be a little inexperienced, but it's still a great series to check out if you're just coming into the whole graphic novel scene.
If you haven't listened to our earlier episodes, please do, and then tell us how much we've improved.
Cam, have you read We Stand on Guard? I think it's
Yeah,
called.
I have. Yeah. So I went through the individual issues of that, and Steve Scrose is a guy whose work I hadn't seen in so long. So him with the writer of Saga, who's Brian K. Vaughan, was just quite amazing. Did you manage to get a whole look at that?
I bought the whole collected hardcover edition for my friend's birthday, so when he's finished reading that, I'm going to borrow it. So tell me it's awesome.
Oh, it is. So a civil war between the United States and Canada. You know, as a concept, I'm sold already.
So Canada wins then.
And then says sorry.
We're not going to go into spoiler territory just yet. Maybe we should do a future We Stand on Guard edition, but definitely one that I recommend.
Say, a book I got for myself, Injustice Gods Among Us, Year 3, Volume 2. Lots of copies of those. A book that came out 2 weeks ago, Secret 6, Book 4, sold out everywhere. I hit up 4 comic book shops and could not get it. So bummed.
Yeah, I feel like if depending on when you get there, that's sort of the story of your day. Unless you're queuing up at 6 a.m. by the time you get inside to.
I was in Phantom Zone at like 5 minutes past 9 and it was sold out. But it came out 2 weeks ago, so that's probably why.
Yeah. Okay.
Sold out before the day.
I went into Kinukunya's fantasy section and checked out the other novels that I don't really get to look at in detail. Had a look at the old Brandon Sanderson series that he'd done. I think it's called like the Mistborn. That's the one.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that as much as I enjoyed Way of Kings.
Okay, is it at least similar in certain aspects, or?
I don't think it has his commitment to a good action story. It's quite good, but the action isn't as cinematic, I guess.
Okay, cool. Yeah, interesting. So, if you were going along to Free Comic Book Day for the first time, what do you guys think would be the best way to go about doing it?
I did
really
say find
early or really late.
I dare say find if you go to the right store, a place that's perhaps not as big as popular a comic book store, then you should have no problems. Like I thought that when I went 2 years ago, the Phantom Zone had a really good offering, and they didn't seem to have the same kinds of issues you would run into at one of the bigger places. So it might be worthwhile planning out your day to incorporate that.
So what I'm kind of saying is that I feel like the best way to do it might be to go to find your good local comic book store rather than bother trekking into the really major ones in the city.
And it's certainly worth chasing down some of those places just in general. A lot of the time, your local comic book retailer is stressing out and is someone that's struggling with their business. It's a very niche thing to get into, so always worth supporting those guys anyway.
Yeah, cool.
My advice would be to arrive early, bring snacks, and bring friends. Because if you do get stuck in a line, you don't want to be doing that on your own.
Yep.
I got free ice cream at King's Comics.
This guy offered me a free cone.
Look, we had, there was some nice people around us in line, so it wasn't that bad. We just weren't expecting to be in line quite so long.
Yeah.
I think next time it's likely myself and my partner will be happy to go up in the afternoon and just get a pick of what's left.
Yeah. Retrospectively speaking, I don't have any regrets about attending at about 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So, yes, I would have been interested to check out Civil War, but by the sounds of it, it's not like a complete comic or story in its own right anyway, so I'm not that fussed about missing out on it.
I think we got 2 of Civil War if you want one.
Cool. Sold.
For the grand price of nothing.
It's the spirit of the day.
But you have to come to Canberra to fetch it.
Oh.
How does Impact Comics kind of offerings in the past years kind of been for Free Comic Book Day?
I have no idea. This is the first year I've lived in Canberra.
Okay.
So John and Harrow, comparatively speaking, I assume you guys have been to this previously. Does the experiences that we had this year sound similar to what it was like in years gone by?
This was my first one as well, sorry.
Yeah, so from my experience, not really. This is the first time I've heard about these kinds of issues with long lines and whatnot. But, like I've had, for example, I think it was 2011, King's Comics had, for their free comic book day offering, you could just order online, which I was doing a lot of then anyway. So I didn't bother heading down for any of that. So I just ordered my free stuff online and got it. That was nifty. They don't do that anymore for obvious reasons, but they've certainly had times when I went up to my local library in Katoomba for Free Comic Book Day in, I think it was 2014. That was interesting. They had a kind of a guest artist and stuff like that. Just worth checking out what your local library is doing for these things.
Cool.
Yeah, sometimes they have interesting events for Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But look, it's probably a sign that it's becoming more popular and more well known, which has its drawbacks, has its good points.
Yeah.
I definitely think with comic book based movies coming out and being very much mainstream and popular, I would imagine Free Comic Book Day as a whole has seen more people come to it and suck up all those juicy comic book awesomeness.
Juicy comic books.
So, obviously speaking, if you're interested in anything comic book related and graphic novel related, this is could be a potentially fun event for you. But it sounds like you could probably get just as much out of it by going in the afternoon as queuing up all day from early in the morning. Is that fairly accurate, do you guys reckon?
Yeah, I missed out on the Captain America issue. That's about it.
There's no substitute for atmosphere. If you're gonna love the whole nerdy atmosphere, then yeah, you're gonna love the Free Comic Book Day. But yeah, if you're after for some quick and freebies, some tasters, go in the afternoon and yeah, avoid the lines.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll see some, if you go early, maybe you'll see some nerds fight about whether, Darkseid is a rip-off of Thanos or the other way around.
Cool. All right. Crystal, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown about what's happening, what's the latest news with LFG?
I'm excited.
Yeah. I am too. I'm really excited. I'm actually really excited for Looking for Gamers. I'm really looking forward to a whole weekend of board gaming.
Yeah, I think that'll be pretty cool. The games library, I think, is going to be pretty awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the developers bring and the publishers bring as well, because I wouldn't be surprised if there was some interesting reveals at this event.
If you're there at the event, come up and say hello as well. We'd love to meet anyone who actually listens to the podcast. And if you want to play something or do something like that, I'm personally very keen. So you may have more difficulty talking Bauxite into a game of Agricola, but but I'm always up for a game of Seven Wonders and other stuff like that. So
I'm also up for playing any good games.
Definitely. I'm really looking forward to, they're doing a Looking for Gamers plays Pandemic Legacy. So if you don't want Pandemic Legacy spoiled for you, stay at home.
I'm really torn about that because I've been looking at Pandemic Legacy for some time.
Yeah.
And I want to purchase it, but geez, the last Legacy game I bought was Risk Legacy.
Risk, yeah.
Yeah, and we all know how that turned out.
Look, I think Pandemic's...
Not that we're blaming anyone.
I think Pandemic's quite different because it is a co-op game, so there's less of that rivalry and, oh dear God, I can't suffer through another session of this, I'm going to kill you kind of vibe.
Yeah, that was pretty hard.
At the game group here in Canberra, we realised we had so many people who wanted to play it that we bought 2 copies. So one group has already started and they're just about finished, and the other group hasn't started because they're all the people who couldn't get their act together to get a first date going, which means there's half of the group haven't even started it yet. I would be one of the half that haven't started yet.
That surprises me, Crystal. You're usually so organised and available to do things.
Look, Box, I am a very organised person generally. I just organise well in advance.
That's true.
All right. Bauxite, do you want to wind us up?
I do.
And do you want to give us an outro as well?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Get out of my head. Thanks for joining us this week. We hope you've enjoyed yourselves as much as we have. You can catch us on Twitter at wellplayedau. You can send us questions, comments, or abuse at wellplayedau@gmail.com. And if you like us, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or subscribe and like on YouTube or whatever it is you do on whatever platform you're using to say, keep doing that good stuff, guys. So, yeah. Thanks. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.